I'm Bob Savakinus. Welcome to our program in a nutshell. Today our guest is Tom Cipriano. Tom was born in Philadelphia, but he's currently a resident of Scranton for the last 20 years. He had his upbringing in Bucks County, which fostered his interest in local history. A church that was organized in 1710 near his childhood home held the remains of a Revolutionary War general that just brought his love of history and his interest to fruition. He's traveled a lot with his family over the years. He's visited over 40 countries and been to 5 continents. He went to the University of Scranton and then decided to settle here in northeastern Pennsylvania. He's worked at the Lackawanna Heritage Valley Authority and has various interests, including theater, music, art, and horseback riding. He's gotten involved in our local history through the late Alan Sweeney, who was board president of the Lackawanna Historical Society and the Lackawanna Heritage Valley. He's been a volunteer for over 15 years at the Lackawanna Historical Society, and in 2019 he became a trustee. He's actively involved with the Historical Society, co-chairing their Building and Grounds Department, and in 2020 he was the Volunteer of the Year. Welcome, Tom Cipriano, to our program.
Thanks very much, Bob. I'm glad to be here.
Tom, it shows to me you have a lot of interest in local history. Recently becoming a board member of the Lackawanna Historical Society. How about just filling us in a little bit about the Historical Society itself?
The Historical Society has always been a fascinating place for me. I was first drawn to the house itself, the Catlin House. As a student at the university, you can't help but ignore this Tudor mansion amidst all the brick buildings. Through my involvement with the Heritage Valley Authority, I got sort of the inside path to the Historic Society, and everything that I learned there, it just helped, remind me why I like this region and why I want to learn more about the region. And through all the various programs and publications, they're a tremendous asset, and I'm grateful to be involved.
In my knowledge and recollections, the Historical Society was founded in 1886, so I believe that makes it the oldest cultural institution in Lackawanna County. And again, we're talking about the Lackawanna Historical Society, the Catlin House. What is the difference that you've noticed as far as in your years of being a volunteer to now being a trustee? A lot more responsibilities. What are some of the things that you do now as a trustee board member of the Historical Society?
I feel kind of taking the leap from a volunteer to trustee, I feel a lot more responsibility. I feel that there's a small core group of people that are charged with coming up with the ideas to keep the programs running into the future, and I found myself on a lot of different committees. I started out on the Building and Grounds Committee, which is interesting since it was the structure itself that first caught my interest. Now I'm privileged to be part of the group of team members that help make the best decisions we can so that the home of the Historical Society can continue to serve our needs and stand the test of time. I found myself attending membership committee meetings. Most recently, a committee was established for an afternoon tea that we're going to hold on the porch of the Historical Society. So I've gotten in a lot deeper, a lot more involved in the inner workings as opposed to the volunteer opportunities, which you're in,
Right.
But now I'm really in there deep. So, and it's great. They've all been great experiences, and I'm appreciating the opportunity to work with such great people.
Let's talk about Tom Cipriano, the man, the person, a little bit. Just reading a little bit of your bio and everything. So you've traveled to 40 countries, been to different continents and everything. What was that like, being able to see so many different places? And what were some of your fonder memories of traveling?
My parents had this yearn to travel and see the world, and they wanted us to be as well-rounded as we could. So their first interest, they started taking sailing classes with some friends. So we would charter a sailboat in the summer and cruise up and down the Chesapeake Bay. And then that took us to a great adventure with a larger group of people in the Virgin Islands sailing. And we have a lot of extended family in in Europe. My grandparents thought that it was very important that we meet our relatives, and so that was another great trip where we visited. It was then Yugoslavia and some of the surrounding countries, Austria, all of the places where the Hungarian side of my family started, and that was a pretty outstanding trip, and meeting all of these different people at their farms and in their homes. It was an unbelievable experience. I think I was only in 6th or 7th grade when we took such a big trip like that. And after that, we do a lot of cruising. Some people knock cruising as a way of traveling and seeing the world, but nothing beats having your hotel follow you along. And we took a cruise of the Mediterranean several years back, which was dynamite. I mean, what a great way to see all of the major tourist spots in Italy and surrounding countries, than just hopping off the ship in a new port every day. And I don't know, I've appreciated those opportunities, and it'll be a while before I can afford to take such trips again, so I'm grateful to have some really solid memories.
So as far as like visiting and traveling in all those various countries and locations and everything, yet here you are in northeastern Pennsylvania in Scranton, and in just reading over your bio again a little bit, a lot of interest in the arts and theater and everything. And from what I've seen and observed, our area has a very vibrant arts community. Do you get involved with that? I mean, obviously through the Historical Society, but are there any other events, attractions that you like to attend or that participate in?
I enjoy the First Friday celebrations. Since I started going to those, the downtown itself has changed drastically. In years past, we didn't have a lot of residents downtown. So First Friday gave you this glimpse of the city when it was at its high point, its heyday, with people walking around at night and shops open and people crowding the restaurants. It was always a great experience to be out and about, seeing great art and touring all these different venues. But now it's become even better with this downtown residential population, making these experiences even fuller and richer. All these different people coming together to really kind of get out and celebrate Scranton on a great night out. And
I've said this over and over again when we have various guests on, when we've talked about activities and attractions, that our county commissioners do such a great job in just providing so many opportunities, so many arts programs, grants, things like that to the citizens and the artists and everything to make it a vibrant community, which obviously it is. As a native of Philadelphia and living in this area, you could see a major city like Philadelphia, yet Scranton can compete as far as you're telling us with all the great activities and everything. You worked at the Lackawanna Heritage Valley Authority a few years back and everything. That seems to have been kind of like a launching pad for you to become involved in local history. Do you want to maybe explain a little bit about your time with Lackawanna Heritage Valley Authority and our area?
Yeah, absolutely. I was brought on as a building manager for them when their offices were located up in Mayfield. And although that was my primary focus, we were all part of a team. And when it came to deciding which grants we thought the group would want to focus on, we all sat down at the same table to make those decisions. And they were part of this interconnected group of historic sites and cultural institutions, and had roundtable discussions once a month, which gave me a great overview of, speaking of arts and culture, what this area had to offer. We used to run these ambassador tours showing people all of these, the stadium that we have, the fantastic cultural center, our headquarters in Mayfield, and working with the Anthracite Heritage Museum, the Trolley Museum, the coal mine tour. It gave me this broad exposure to what the region had as part of its past and how it was presenting that past to the future and current residents. And it gave me a great perspective as to what a rich region this is as far as its history and how many exciting things are going on.
And you bring up an interesting point that you look at what our history was, but now that history has become an economic driver in our country, in our county, that is, because it's turned into tourism. And when you talk about places like the Trolley Museum, the Anthracite Museum, and all those things, it celebrates our heritage, but yet at the same time, it now has become a tourist mecca to draw people to spend their money and keep economic development happening in northeastern Pennsylvania, especially here in the Lackawanna County area. So in your bio, you mentioned a little bit about Alan Sweeney, and I remember Alan a little bit as I got a little bit involved here and everything, but Alan was a force in Lackawanna County, whether it was through the Historical Society, the Heritage Valley Authority, and many other boards that he served on and everything. And I think our community lost a lot when Alan unfortunately passed away too young. What were some of your thoughts of your relationship with Alan?
He was a colorful guy. He brought a lot of energy and excitement into the projects that he was working with, and he was a driven person. And he made you interested in what he was talking about and what he was working on, and he really he made it a pleasure to become involved. So it was great having him as the president of the LHVA board, and with his work with the Historical Society. He was a driver, and he really helped move things forward in a productive way that got a lot of people on his side and involved, and it was a tremendous asset, and as you said, a terrific loss to the region.
So Alan seemed to have been a force that got you as well interested in our local history and everything, and obviously serving on the Historical Society board now and the great things that the Historical Society does. Maybe let's spend a few minutes talking about some of those things. You mentioned about First Friday. I know the Historical Society, again, has done architectural walking tours of downtown Scranton and just the amazing buildings that have survived here. And just speaking of buildings a little bit, I know one of your interests is the Hotel Casey, or what used to have been the Hotel Casey. How about a little bit reflection for our audience on what the Hotel Casey was and what it means to you?
The first exposure I had was while I had graduated from the university, but a friend of mine introduced me to a student who was interested in putting together a documentary about the hotel. And he was looking for a cameraman, and I had been a communication major, so he thought that might be a good fit. Also, my interest in history was something that he thought might be a good match for this project. But with Marianne Savakinus, the director of the Historical Society, we actually were given access to the inside of the hotel with the fellow who was leading the demolition project. So there we were with our cameras and our hard hats going through the place from the basement up until maybe the 5th floor or so. There was a bit of damage the higher up you went, so we couldn't really see too much. But I mean, it was, as a student at the university, it was still an inspiring structure. It loomed over the skyline of the city, and to see it in its kind of degraded state was just as fascinating as maybe seeing it in its active state with the windows open and the curtains billowing in the wind. It was a place that I had always wanted to explore, and so getting the chance to do that was a great experience. And then, of course, having been in there, all I wanted to do was learn more about it. And it's a fantastic story, the rise and fall of the hotel, that really does help tell the story of Scranton, and how when Scranton was booming and when it was on the rise, this building came up, and it was the height of luxury, and it held all kinds of important and notable guests. And then as the city slipped and declined a bit, so did the hotel, and unfortunately it had to close, and even worse, had to be torn down. I still wonder if it had survived a little bit longer to see this downtown renaissance. Would it have actually been able to have been, revived? I don't know. It's something that I've wondered about. But being involved in the documentary project and learning a lot of things on my own, just really, it was one of the more interesting experiences that I've had here, and I'm glad to have had it.
It's interesting. I would probably consider you the Hotel Casey expert in our area. As a lot of people know, Rocky Glen was my fascination, or is my fascination. It's amazing all the historical attractions, sites that we've had through the years, and what a rich history we have in our area, northeastern Pennsylvania. If you had a look at something, though, what do you think, in your opinion, is one of the bigger history stories, if you want to call it that, in our area?
Aside from the obvious one, which is coal mining.
How about the Hotel Casey?
The railroad history around here is something that I know it's been covered, many times, but it's something that's pretty incredible. There were so many different major railroads that had headquarters in this area. This was a major hub, even in on the grounds of the LHVA building in Mayfield. That had once been a rail yard, and if you walked off of the landscaped property and into the woods, you could see the ties in the woods that brought many rail lines onto that site once upon a time. And delving into that, there's a great rich history, and of course you can see it right in the Lackawanna station that still stands proudly in the downtown. It's an impressive history that we have here that, thank goodness, is able to be interpreted through Steamtown, National Historic Site. And then on a smaller scale, we can tell Scranton's trolley story with the adjacent trolley museum. But our rail history is something that's pretty fascinating.
And a lot of times people may think that history can be a little bit on the dry side, but yet if you turn it into something that you yourself or your family is very much interested in, you turn it into almost a hobby. I know, like genealogists, they do a lot of research through the Historical Society. They spend a lot of time learning about their family roots and things like that. But I know there's a lot of, how should we call it, fun activities that also happen through the Historical Society. And I've had the privilege of being a part of a lot of those fun activities and everything. Fundraisers that to pay the bills at the Historical Society. Obviously, events have to happen that are history-based, but also can be fun-based. And I think you know what I'm alluding to, because I think several times we may have been a Cousin Eddie or two from Christmas Vacation, the movie, and everything. So maybe, I guess, the Historical Society, I'm going to, lead up to it, that through the Circle Drive-In, their partnership, they've shown retro historical themed movies, if you want to call it that, such as Christmas Vacation, which will be upcoming in July, and in August there'll be Caddyshack. Tom, tell us your thoughts as a board member, but also as somebody who's having some fun at the drive-in. What our audience can expect to come out for one of those movie showings, or both those movie showings, in the near future.
Well, to touch on a point that you just made, it's good for people to see that history and involvement in the Historical Society is not all black and white photographs of men in bowler hats. There's a lot of fun to be had in interpreting history, but also, as you said, fundraisers are integral to the survival. It's one thing to write a check in support of a group, but if you can find events like this where everyone gets something out of the experience, so you mentioned the Christmas Vacation. So you've got the Circle Drive-In in Dixon City, which is a historic venue. It's one of the few surviving drive-in theaters in the United States, and it's a point of pride here that it never really went out of fashion. So it's been cruising along through the good times and bad for all these years. And of course, now with the pandemic, it's been more popular than ever, and people are rediscovering what a great experience it is to be out there. And people don't sit in their cars anymore either. A lot of people think that they don't want to go and sit in their car in a parking lot for 2 hours while they're watching a movie. But people set up lawn chairs and tables, and it's kind of like sitting out under the stars watching a favorite film. And it's been a joy to watch the Christmas Vacation showing start from its first inception. To be part of an annual tradition that you've been able to see grow year after year, and it gets a little zany. I mean, I've donned a bathrobe and a cap, and we all become Cousin Eddie for the night. But the whole costume factor has been getting even more widespread every year, and it's a party. It's a party atmosphere. It's a chance to gather with friends new and old. The Historical Society benefits by getting some financial supply out of it, and the drive-in makes some money as well. It's a completely positive, wonderful, exciting event. So everyone should certainly look forward to that in July.
I guess what I would suggest then to our audience is to check out the website of the Lackawanna Historical Society or Facebook page. in addition to the Circle Drive-Ins website and Facebook page. So we have Christmas Vacation upcoming, in which just come out there and have a good fun time. I know there's prizes that they give out for people dressing in costume. I know I've seen people arrive with RVs, kind of the Cousin Eddie Griswold family. So it is a very great fun time, delicious food at the drive-in and everything. Caddyshack is going to be in August, and I think what the theme has been Throwback Thursdays at the drive-in for the movies. I know we had a fun experience with the movie Jaws a couple of weeks ago, in which there was a lot of enjoyment by the community.
Absolutely.
So as far as the drive-ins, the theater experience and everything, with having people coming out and having a fun time and everything, how do you feel that is as a board member to say it's not necessarily a historical event, but it's an event to bring the community more aware of what the Historical Society is all about, the general community, that is?
Well, there are all kinds of events that can be hosted by any group, and certain things might appeal to others versus different events. But it's kind of it's an easy way to support an organization that you love. To get out there, and even if you can't attend the movie, maybe just buy a couple of tickets and support. But it's important to offer a variety. When you're basically there to serve the community, and you need engagement from the community. So you've got to come up with different events that will cater to everyone's tastes. So like I said, we've got a tea coming up on the porch. Now, anyone that's interested in attending an authentic English tea is going to dive on those tickets. And anyone who enjoys a great night out and a fantastic film, they shouldn't have to think twice about attending a drive-in movie experience in support of the Historical Society. So, variety is the spice of life, and when you're looking for funds, from any possible angle, it's important to keep things interesting.
So to kind of sum it up, it supports the Historical Society, it supports the drive-in, our local community. In addition to you have a lot of fun. We encourage people to come dressed up as characters, whether it's from Caddyshack or in this case we seem to be talking a lot about Christmas Vacation, but also you get a chance to see some people like us dressed up as Cousin Eddie in our bathrobes. But you also have other events. You mentioned the tea will be upcoming at the Lackawanna Historical Society, a proper British English tea. There's also, I believe it is August 13th, which is Friday the 13th, at the Forest Hill Cemetery. There's going to be a paranormal ghost hunting tour or something. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
The Wyoming Valley Ghost Hunters are hosting a tour of the Forest Hill Cemetery. And, now we're just trying to paint the Historical Society as exciting and vibrant, but yet there is a component that is buried in the ground. And if you take a walk through some of the local cemeteries, and Forest Hills is a great example, reading the stones, you'll see all of the names that shaped this region. It's kind of fascinating to have driven past a street with a certain name for 20 years and then see the final resting place of that citizen who was a mover and shaker in his time. So they'll be leading a ghost tour after dark through the cemetery, which will offer a little insight into the supernatural, but also give people some of the historical background that they maybe should know about some of the residents of the cemetery and some of the people that really helped to define and shape this region.
So you're getting some entertainment, but you're also going to learn a little bit of history.
Absolutely. And those tickets are going to sell out fast, so it's important to book now.
So once again, I'll ask our audience to check out the Historical Society's website, Facebook page for more information on that. I also have a copy here of a book written by a local author, a local businessman from Diversified Information Technologies. It's called I Have an Idea, Cliff Melberger. He will be appearing at the Lackawanna Historical Society for a book signing. And again, our audience can find out dates and times and everything, but that is also something I've noticed through the years, that local authors will come to the Historical Society to do book signings on various topics of our local history that they've written books on. Your thoughts on something like that?
History is not just the things that happened a long time ago. History is happening every moment. So if we get the chance to partner with a local author who has a story to tell, that's just as important as the records from the railroad. So it's a great partnership. When we can have an author visit the house, arrange a program around their project, and get people from the community in and speaking with the author. It's a good experience, and it reminds people that there are lots of things happening, and we're happy to be able to capture them and share them with the community. That's really what we do.
We've talked about the importance of raising money and support for the Historical Society and other nonprofits in our area. We've talked about the different activities and everything, but there's other ways you could get involved, such as volunteering. And in your case, Tom, you're a perfect example. You started off as a volunteer, and now you're out there representing the Historical Society as a trustee, as a board member. Tell us about the importance of volunteering, whether it's for the Historical Society or other nonprofits in our area that can benefit from those hard-working hours from volunteers.
Well, as a nonprofit organization, it's important to be careful how you're spending your money. And if you want to have a successful event, you can't shell out for professional staff. For example, the tea. We're going to have a program host who's putting together a fine program and a great menu, but we're going to rely on volunteers to help just kind of, keep things moving, serve the food and beverages, and it's the assistance of volunteers who come and give of themselves that keep costs down and help, again, help the word spread, because everyone that volunteers at an event is going to talk about that event with their friends and family, and that helps get the word out on the exciting things that are going on. So it's really it's an ideal partnership, and we really wouldn't be able to do as much as we do without our volunteers. And sometimes it means getting your hands dirty. This Saturday I'll be weeding around the Catlin House, and that's I'm not afraid to put in a little hard work like that, because again, that is our home, that is our headquarters. It's heavily viewed as a part of the university campus, really, and keeping it looking its best keeps us looking our best. So another great opportunity to give and give back.
I think the way you summed it up is perfect, because the Historical Society, the Catlin House, is that old English Tudor home, and the grounds always look spectacular. It's because of volunteers and board members like yourself that spend the time to care for this building and the grounds and everything else about that. Tom, tell us about local history and why it's important to you, and why should it be important to our viewers?
There's a great old phrase out there, you can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. And, without having an understanding of the struggles that people faced in the early years of the development of this region. I mean, the first settlers had to literally chop down the forests in order to build the city. But then as the area progressed, as the industries came in, forging iron, mining coal, these are difficult tasks. These people worked long hours in dangerous conditions, and I feel that kind of work and that kind of a difficult beginning really helped to shape the character of the people in this region. It helped to form a strong people who were they worked just as hard as they played. That the phrase, if you can play Scranton, you can play anywhere. The people who lived and worked here, they wanted their entertainment, and if you were on stage and you weren't up to snuff, they would let you know, because they worked hard for their money. So it created a discerning, tough group of people who were eager to pursue things in their their leisure hours, hence the development of such venues as Rocky Glen and Naog Park. So through that struggle came a lot of good, and it's important to remember the people who helped facilitate those things, like the Everhart Museum, Dr. Everhart. People who saw that this was a region worth investing in, and that the people in this region were deserving of better things. So that kind of relationship helped to really create a diverse and interesting place. And it's a lot more rewarding if you understand how all of those things started from a little valley in the woods in the 1700s.
Well, I want to thank you, Tom Cipriano, for all that you do in our community. Thank you for the support that you do for the Lackawanna Historical Society in preserving our history. And I'm just going to ask our audience to come on out there and support the Historical Society. Come out, check out their Facebook page, their website, see all the great fun activities that are going on. And if you get a chance, come out and see us as Cousin Eddie in the future and everything else. Thank you, Tom, again, for being our guest today. I'm Bob Savakinus. Thank you for watching our program in a nutshell.